Okay. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to D&D Character Creation, part 2 of our Intro to D&D series. Our presenter once again is Dave Hansen, who will also be our Dungeon Master for an in-person series starting in late January 2022. Be sure to keep an eye out for more details on that. So without further ado, I'll give it over to Dave.
Hi. Last workshop I did bring up the website D&D Beyond, and today I thought I'd go a little bit over what a character sheet would look like on the website, and then also give you some tools, kind of like a breakdown of what a character is, and then going through some steps of creating a character and getting some inspiration, things like that, and then showing you some tools as well. So this is a character I created for a Extra Life event. I kind of created, it's been a few years since I created Hope, but she is a Tiefling rogue. And with the character sheet, it'll look different if you've got it printed on physical paper. Or using the standard Dungeons and Dragons character sheet, but I like how it's organized on here. So you have your character name, the race, the class, and then the level your character is at. And then right below here in these boxes, we have what are considered your character stats. So each stat kind of base is like determinant of what your character might be better at, and different features. And the one thing I like about D&D Beyond is it has a nice feature where if you click and want more information, it just pops that up. So strength would be considered your bodily power, like how strong you are physically. In situations where you're using a heavy axe, maybe as a weapon, or you're trying to hold back like zombies and you're barricading the door and seeing like how much strength you can put against the door while also keeping them at bay. And then we also have dexterity. Dexterity is kind of your agility, as it says on the sheet, agility, reflexes, and balance. And that would be something like, say, with the character, my rogue, Hope is a very athletic, they use more finesse weapons, so maybe a rapier or a short sword, or a bow and arrow. So they're using more pinpoint accuracy rather than just coming down with a huge club. Constitution kind of measures your health or stamina. So it may be in the situation of like how many hit points you have for a character, or determining if you can survive a situation where, say, you have to hold your breath for a long period of time, like you're swimming through a cave, but you don't have light. So you're just kind of feeling your way around. So you're just trying to keep your air and oxygen to keep going forward. And then there's intelligence and wisdom. Sometimes I feel like they're interchangeable, like if you use them in just general vernacular, but in the game, intelligence is a measure of like remembering things, and just a lot. I like to break it down. It seems more like book smart versus street smart. So if I remember, and each character has different stats that they may need to be more efficient as a character. Whereas with a rogue, she may not read as many books, and isn't casting spells. But with wisdom, she is a little bit more in tune with people and just kind of observing things either in the natural world or with people in general. So maybe being able to tell if someone's lying to you, or notice something that just might be people may not see, like maybe when checking for traps, they might see the border of a trap that's like a fake floor. They may be able to pick up on little details that would help them find that. And the last stat is charisma. And charisma measures your ability to interact effectively with others. So how much people might like you. With that, that might be someone who is more diplomatic, or maybe someone who in a character, like say with a bard, they may be able to put on a better show for a crowd and entertain people than someone who's broody like Batman. And then we have proficiencies, which gives a little bonus to your stats when it comes to skills. And over here we have your walking speed, which a lot of times it'll say when you're picking your race, and other factors, they'll tell you generally how fast you are. Things can affect it, like armor. And then kind of going back, kind of just going along that from top to bottom. And then when talking about your constitution, it does affect your hit points. And then we have saving throws. You might find yourself in a situation where these different where your stats may affect a situation where you're trying to survive something. So a dexterity saving throw for a rogue might be a situation where they didn't pick up on that falling floor as a trap, but they have the opportunity to maybe dive and avoid the trap from actually doing severe damage, or completely killing them in one situation. Sometimes there are also situations where there may be a spell effect where you need to fight it, like if someone's trying to charm you, or throwing a fireball. There, a lot of times when these situations will come up, your game master or dungeon master will tell you what type of throw you're going to need. And then we have your passive, which is just your general observation, general character stats. So this character has a passive perception of a 14, which may be coming in a situation where you're walking down a road and maybe the game master has bandits hiding on the side, but their stealth is so low that you can actually easily pick them up on the side of the road and prepare yourself without being surprised. And or just general seeing when you're in the dark and things like that. And then, of course, there's passive investigation and insight. I'll break down some more of these in a little bit, as these are your skills. And then we have over here some information on your armor that you currently have, weapons in your arsenal, tools, and languages that your character knows. And then over here, we have what are your skills, and these will usually come up in skill checks. So with our rogue, as they're more flexible, they have a higher acrobatics check. So that might be something where you're maybe trying to jump over a monster or do something a little bit more gymnastic-like, or just keeping your balance on a ship. You're just overall just kind of physically using your body that's more acrobatic than muscular. Then there's animal handling, which might come in handy if you're trying to tame an animal as a pet, or maybe see if an animal might be a threat, things like that. An Arcana check might be something where you're trying to deduce runes or understand spells. Athletics is similar to acrobatics, but more like, say, you're trying to grapple someone or hold on to rope, and you just need to like see if your brute strength is enough to hold yourself up on the rocks. Deception is when you're trying to lie to someone. Some of these are pretty simple. And as I mentioned, if you're not sure, your GM will tell you what kind of check to make, or you have with the app, as I mentioned, it gives you a lot of detailed information on what each one does. History is just kind of recollecting the general history of the world, or the area you're in, or different parts, the peoples, the cultures. You have insight, which is just kind of also when you're doing when you're trying to figure out if someone's trying to lie or hide something from you, and just kind of picking up on just what people, I think body language and just observing people is the best way I could describe an insight check. Intimidation might be you're using maybe brute strength, or just like trying to deceive people via coming off a little bit more evil than just straight up lying to someone. Investigation is when you're looking into a little bit more information into hidden objects and other things in the environment. Medicine sometimes might come in handy if you have a character who's lying prone and near death, and you need to try to stabilize them and bring them back. Nature is a little bit different than animal handling. This might help you figure out if items are poisonous to eat, or tracking people, or it kind of comes around with just general natural environments. Perception is another slightly like investigation, but also like if you're trying to listen in on someone or observe people who may be hidden. Performance might come back to the bard, where you're putting on a show and entertaining people. Persuasion is trying to be nicer about lying, or just kind of appeasing the people to maybe work in your favor. So maybe you're trying to get a little bit extra money from the person who's put you on a quest, and you're just like, well, for this kind of work, we might normally do it for this low. However, the added danger of a giant, if you could throw in some extra gold, that would be helpful. Religion is more, instead of knowing general history of the world, it might be religions and deities and gods, things like that. Then we have sleight of hand, of how quickly you can maybe take a little coin purse off of someone, or switch drinks. And best way I could describe it is the scene from Princess Bride where they keep swapping drinks back and forth. Stealth with the rogue, sometimes this was a pre-generated character, is just how well you can hide into the environment without being seen or noticed, moving without making sounds. And then survival is just your skills of surviving, like building campfires, finding places to live. It's a little bit I feel like survival and nature go pretty well hand in hand as traits, depending on the kind of character you want to create. And then with the D&D Beyond, the thing I like here is it gives you a breakdown of actions you can do in combat. If you're a spellcaster, the spells you have taken or have that are just available to you. Your inventory, as I mentioned, some of it's broken down here, but this is a little more detailed information. Your features and traits that come with either your race or class and what those do for you. Descriptions a little bit on, like, say this character is a soldier for their background. So that may also give bonuses to some of their strengths and weaknesses as a general character. You have a notes section. You can add some extra details about your character, and then some extras as well that you can add, or your GM can add for you. And that's kind of the breakdown of a D&D character sheet on D&D Beyond. And then the other thing I want to show is I showed Roll20 last week. And Roll20 is nice because it is an app that's pretty nice if you want to play a game and have access to a map and tokens and things like that. Your characters can upload their character, basically the stats they made in D&D Beyond. They can load into a character sheet and use that information when, I think I showed it off. They can basically use the chat feature for rolling their stats, attacks, things like that. So it looks very similar and easy to upload. And I just kind of want to show that off. This is my cousin's character, his rogue, Trinan Dolphane. And if you look, this is kind of what a regular Dungeons and Dragons character sheet would look like for you. His is a little bit different as he is a higher level character. As you can see, he has more than 9 hit points, a little bit higher armor class. And he filled out some of this information, but not all of it. So I just kind of want to show that off in case you're looking to maybe create a character in D&D Beyond. It's real easy to just then enter that information here to use in the app of Roll20. And if you like having physical media, I have a link here. With this one, you should be able to pull up the 5th. It's a download, but you can download character sheets to fill out for another time. There are different templates you can also probably find online if you want to create your character just using pen and paper and a blank sheet. Actually, I recommend using pencil. If you're going to do a physical character sheet, just because a lot of times you might wind up having to erase and add information, especially when it comes to like taking damage, spending gold, things like that. And then before I go any further, does anyone have any questions about the character sheet or anything like that?
No questions on my end.
Okay. Any for you, Jesse? Okay. Let's see. So the one thing I will say is I'm using D&D Beyond. You can create characters, but it may give you limited options due to if you haven't bought any books through their marketplace. So I will just kind of also say I bought the Player's Handbook and some other materials. With D&D Beyond, the more items you can buy, I guess, in standard Dungeons and Dragons without any of the extra books, there are options for characters. You might not have all the details on creating a character with that. there are extra books that have come out since its original release. If you want to create a character like a Goliath, or I saw one recently that was a turtle race, also like a rabbit, almost looked like a Bugs Bunny character. I think fairies are now available as a playable race, goblins, things like that. So there are options beyond what I'll be showing you today. This is just a lot more of the standard stuff that's available. So the one thing I wanted to show is when you're creating a character, I always like to say, like, think about the kind of character you want to play. Do you want to be a spellcaster or someone who might be a healer? Someone who we have like spellcasters, brute strength, like just full on raging monsters of barbarians, things like that. So maybe think about the kind of character, the maybe kind of weapons you might want to look into playing with. That can kind of help. Or I was talking with some people, and when I first played Dungeons and Dragons, it was the 90s. I was about 8 years old, and I don't know if anyone here used to watch X-Men, the animated series on Fox Kids. But I want to play a character called Morph, who is a shapeshifter. And my dad's like, well, I can't have you be a person shapeshifter necessarily, but we can maybe have you become, I think I played a druid who could shapeshift into animals and other elements. So things like that. I'd read more into the information on the different races and classes to get ideas. Maybe think about fictional archetypes or characters. A lot of Dungeons and Dragons you can kind of pull from Lord of the Rings. So you could create a character who's like Gimli the dwarf. I'm going through all the names. Gimli the dwarf. You have Legolas the elf. Bilbo Baggins, who in The Hobbit is considered a burglar, versus his Frodo his nephew. He might be maybe a fighter. Just to kind of give you ideas and maybe go from there to get inspiration. And I had a character in mind today, kind of going back to X-Men, the animated series from the 90s. Is anyone familiar with the character Gambit?
Yep.
Okay. Gambit is, if you're not familiar, he is a mutant. He has the power of like throwing charged up cards and other items that explode. But I'm going to maybe take that archetype and put him in a D&D setting. So I'm going to create a character. I'm going to do a standard creation to kind of go a little bit more step by step. Okay. You can add extra material from D&D Beyond if you'd like. Some of it, like the homebrew information, critical role. I'm going to just kind of leave it more standard information for creating my character. Let's see. And then just to also talk about advancement type. When you're playing in a game, your DM will let you know there's milestone and XP. Milestone generally is you'll level up when you hit certain points in the story, whereas XP is more based on encounters you run into, scenarios you survive. You might gain XP, traps, and things like that. So if you're best way to describe it is like in a Final Fantasy game, it's maybe to go from level 1 to 2, you need 200 XP, and then 300 XP, and so on and so forth. So you may have to talk to your dungeon master about how they're going to do leveling for you. Hit points, there's fixed, which is, if I remember correctly, they'll give you the max available. Manual is, there's a formula for rolling dice. I think it's you roll each. Sorry, I'm trying to remember. I believe it's each class has it's like a health hit die. So it might be like a D8, a D10. Then you add your Constitution modifier. So there is a formula to it. We're going to just do for timing fixed, which is just the max amount of hit points you can get. And then when you level up, it'll continue to do the max additional hit points you can add after that. This might be another one where you talk to your dungeon master if you're going to worry about encumbrance, if you have like a certain weight capacity you can carry and things like that. Coin weight, whether or not the amount of money you have weighs you down or not. We're going to just kind of ignore a lot of that and just kind of go for a general character. So when you're starting to create your character, first, I like to do this a little bit differently. I like to choose the class and then the race. Just because I like to think about the kind of character, the kind of class or character I want to play, and then figure out a race to kind of start creating my backstory. Just because each race might have like different information, just to give like an idea. If I remember correctly, on the elves, dark elves or drow are elves that grew up and live in a society underground with no sunlight, which is why I don't think their pigmentation is different than the other elves. However, their society is more female driven, and they worship a spider deity. And one of the famous dark elves or drow is Drist. Duerden. Sorry, the pronunciation on me is a little bit slips me a little bit. As I've read the book, I've only heard it pronounced a few times. But we're going for a character like Remy LeBeau from X-Men, so we're going to go with just a standard human. And when you pick your race, it'll also give you a little bit more information. Humans are the most adaptable and ambitious people among the common races. Whatever drives them, humans are innovators, the achievers, and the pioneers of the world. Racial traits, they get +1 to all ability scores and 1 extra language they can learn. So that's a pretty nice feature. And could be another reason why you might want to pick a race before you pick a class. But I'd leave that up to the player. So it's also now asking me to pick which language I want to learn. Common is just the general language most races know. However, if you get into more creatures and things like that, they may know different languages. So with this character, I would say he spends a lot of time traveling and maybe spending times with dwarves. So he can speak common, and he knows how to speak, read, and write dwarvish. And now we're going to pick our class. And with Remy being a thief, the closest class I would recommend would be a rogue. He's a scoundrel who uses stealth and trickery to overcome obstacles and enemies. And then as they get further into their progression, they can also sometimes change the type of specialization. So for a rogue, I think they can either go for an assassin type character or a thief. So the rogue would be the best one to go with. So hit points. Here's the hit dice I was talking about. And then, as I mentioned, the formula is you roll the D8 plus your Constitution modifier. Or with this one, we're just going to do the max of 8 plus the Constitution modifier. We have 4 proficiencies for being a human and a rogue. Generally, because they're more flexible and agilic, they wear light armor, so it doesn't encumber them, especially like when they're trying to dodge out of attacks or avoid traps like that. It's a little bit easier to move around, so it doesn't hinder their movement. Weapons include simple weapons like swords and quarterstaffs, hand crossbows, long swords, rapiers, short swords. Those are the kind of weapons they can use as a character. Tools, thieves' tools for breaking and entering, things like that. Saving throws, they're going to be proficient in dexterity because they are nimble, and intelligence. And then they have proficiency in 4 out of these skills here. And I'm going to take into consideration Gambit's a charmer, so he may use his, as I might steal from Tangled, his smolder. He's going to turn the smolder on to help him get out of maybe some situations or help his situation. So I'm going to go with persuasion as one of my proficiencies where I'm going to be better at using that kind of skill. I'll get that proficiency bonus. He's a thief, so he has a tendency to maybe have to steal items or coins off of people without them noticing. So he's going to be quick with his hands. He's going to have real good sleight of hand. And I always think of like Gambit where he's doing like a cartwheel and throwing cards. So he's also going to be really acrobatic. The 90s was a big of I feel like cartwheels were everywhere. So we're going to do acrobatics. Now, for the last one, I might say he's good with people. So he can really read into whether people are lying to him or hiding something from him. And I'm just going to go with that because he seems to have spent a lot of time around people in crowds, maybe trying to trick people with some con games and things like that. So I think insight would be a good one to follow up. Stealth could be another good choice if we wanted to, if he was more like a burglar. So that's kind of something I'd recommend thinking about when you're creating your characters. Like, what do you want to be? What are the things you want to be better at, or just kind of like comes more naturally to you? At first level, choose 2 of your skill proficiencies. So, and your proficiency with thieves' tools, your proficiency bonus is doubled for an ability check you make that uses. So from those, we are going to choose. I think we're going to go persuasion. We'll go with thieves' tools. And then it'll give you a little bit more description. As a rogue, you have the ability for a sneak attack, and thieves can't, which is a little bit more breakdown. Sneak attack gives you a little bit of bonus when you're in battle. Thieves' Cant. During your rogue training, you learn Thieves' Cant, a secret mix of dialect, jargon, and code that allows you to hide messages in seemingly normal conversation. So maybe you and your crew can develop a secret language with each other, or maybe if you're traveling, you might be able to pick up on words and maybe find members of a thieves guild that you belong to as well. So we're going to move on. So when I was talking about the ways you can do your stats for your character, there's the standard array, which is a point-based system. You get a certain set of numbers that you can put in your stats. There's a manual rolled, which is you roll 4d6s and you take the top 3 and you add that into your stats. And then there's a point buy where I think, you start at 8, and the higher you go up, the more points it costs to go up. But you can also go, I believe you can go down to gain more points. So we're going to just go with the standard array. With Remy here, he's going to be, a lot of his abilities and things like that will come from his dexterity. So we're going to put most of our points, our highest available, into dexterity. And then I think for him, because he's a charmer and he's going to probably use his mouth to get him out of more situations than not, I think charisma might be the best way to go for his second highest. And then maybe after that, 13 for wisdom, just so he can be better at perceiving people, judging people, things like that. And then we'll probably maybe want to put Constitution at his next one. So maybe he does have to like sneak in through canals and things like that. So having to hold his breath to get through to secret compartments and hideaways and caves. So we're going to put a little bit more in Constitution, may also give him a little bit higher in his HP. Now you can go either way with Intelligence or Strength. I think we'll put the last, the 10 on Strength in case he needs to do a little bit more heavy lifting. He's not going to be great at it. But it also means he doesn't read a lot. So don't ask him how the Odyssey or trying to think of just any general books. He probably doesn't read that many. And it gives you a nice breakdown of all the other things that means for that character. So I just want to show that off. And then let's see. With a little bit of additional information, because I own the player's handbook, there are these things called backgrounds that kind of gives your character a little bit more detail to rounding him out. Maybe he's one I've seen is a sailor, so he's maybe a little bit more familiar with seas and his way around a ship. I think we'll go if he's a charlatan. You've always had a way with people. You know what makes them tick. You can tease out their heart's desire. After a few minutes of conversation with a few leading questions, you can read them like they were a children's book. It's a useful talent and one that you're perfectly willing to use for your advantage. So the backgrounds are available in the player's handbook. If I remember correctly, however, with D&D Beyond, if you don't own the player's handbook, that may not be available to you. And not always necessarily a thing you need to worry about. You can ask your GM or DM, and maybe you can even find a way to create your own background for your character as well. This is just kind of more like templates for your character. You can even flesh it out with the template as well. We are going to skill proficiencies. Deception, we'll give them perception. False identity. You have created a second identity that includes documentation. So if you need to lie yourself out of a situation saying you're someone else, you can say that as well. Or maybe you've created a false identity because you've been on the run for so long, things like that. But that's a little bit more information about backgrounds. You can even continue to keep going. If you're interested, there's tables for suggested characteristics. If you're not sure which one you want to choose, you can even roll one to help you flesh out a character. You can roll a D8 here, a D6 here, D6 here. If you're not sure, if there is something that you'd like to go with, you can just pick it yourself, or you can roll the dice and see what comes from it. I feel like that could be up to you and your GM if you want to go that detailed into your backstory, or something you want to develop over time as well. With the game, you can talk to your GM about how you'd like to get your equipment. There's just standard equipment which we're going to do. We're going to choose the kind of weapon we're going to have for the character. For him, so the staff isn't coming up as an option, but we're going to go with maybe a rapier. He's a swashbuckler, maybe. And then for another one, we could go, if we wanted to, we could do like 2 short swords if he wanted to be a two-handed weapons master. But I think we're going to go with he's a rapier. We'll give him a short bow and a quiver of arrows as well. And then you can choose like what kind of pack of items you want to give your character. Because he is a thief, obviously I'm going to go with a burglar's pack, which includes a backpack of 1,000 ball bearings. You can maybe use to trip people up. 10 feet of string, maybe if you want to set up and a bell, if you want to set up like maybe an alarm system, some candles, a crowbar, hammer, items that maybe a standard burglar might have for breaking in. Let's see. Some clothes because he's a charlatan. Maybe he needs a disguise if he needs to fit in with maybe a higher class or noblemen. And then maybe, let's see. I think, because he's Gambit, a deck of marked cards that he can use for maybe cheating people out of their money. He's going to maybe cheat people out of money at a card game at the local tavern. So we're going to add our starting equipment. Okay, that should be everything. If we go. Nope. Let's pick that. So, nope. Call him Remy. That's saved. Yep. And we have our character here. So that's the nice thing. Once you get a little bit more familiar with the characters and what the character sheet, the skills and abilities are, I think it really helps move the time, especially kind of process I did of trying to think of the kind of character I wanted to make. Also made it a little bit easier of like how I decided I was going to put my points into the stats. Does anyone have any questions before I move on to another part?
Nope.
No? I'm just going to... I'm going to show a really cool feature, though. So we're going to do 2 more characters real quick. we are going to do a quick build. So with this one, literally going to do, we're going to pick our race, class, and name, and then it's going to basically generate everything we need to start out a character with that. With this one, let's see. We are going to go with maybe a tiefling. And we're going to go, I'm thinking of a character from this RPG show called Critical Role. There was a Tiefling Cleric whose name was Jester. So we're just going to see what it creates when we're trying to make a Tiefling Cleric real quick. And it's taken probably what the best recommended stats would be for that kind of character. Some of those proficiencies. And then it's even got, if I check our inventory, it should have, I forgot to mention. So armor class. When I don't have it equipped, it's kind of like they're wearing cloth armor or clothes, street clothes. So their armor class is based off, I want to say it's like Dex plus proficiency bonus. There's a formula to it. I think it's 10. Oh yeah, it's 10 plus the dexterity bonus, which is a -1, which is why it brings it down to 9. However, the chainmail gives an extra bonus to the armor class. So armor class is what a roll an enemy would have to make against you to do damage. It has to be equal to or greater than. And then, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention initiative is when a combat or an event happens, your GM or DM will ask you to roll initiative to figure out the turn of order of characters. So with that, oh yeah, this is another feature. So you'll roll a d20 plus your initiative, which is a -1, based off the dexterity. I rolled really poorly. So basically, it would go in order from the highest to the lowest. So this character rolled a 2. So that probably means they're towards the very bottom of the turn order when it comes between your party members and your enemies. Sorry, I forgot about the initiative, but that was another part, and the armor class. When you're using D&D Beyond, technically you have to equip it. So that's why it affected the armor class. So now that's equipped. And then we are also going to give them their mace. So the thing I like about D&D Beyond is when it comes to actions, that can be your spells, which they already gave Thaumaturgy. There should be another one. When you create your character, it'll generally say like how many spells you can have available at a certain level with your class. But the thing that I like about this app is when your turn is up and you're using, say, this website, say I'm just going to make a standard attack with the mace. You can click on it right there, and it'll roll a digital die and add the difference. So you can just tell the DM, I rolled a 17. And let's say that hit. It'll tell you what kind of damage you're going to do, and I just rolled for damage, and I rolled a crit. Technically, I rolled the highest I could, a 6 + 1 for damage. And some creatures or enemies might have resistance to certain types of attacks, maybe based on the armor they have. And that would come in, and the DM can explain it at the time. But I just kind of want to show a nice little feature. just with this website and this app, you could pretty much start a character and almost play without investing really any money at all. It's a nice little feature that I just kind of want to bring to attention. It's pretty nice because I think there's just kind of like breaking down things to make it simpler and affordable, things like that, and accessible. Just anyone can really sign up and use the service. You get your max of 6 characters without the subscription. The nice thing is if you're in a campaign and people in your campaign, they can actually share the materials if they bought digital materials from here. You can share that so you can gain access to maybe different character traits, item ability, all sorts of things. So it kind of really opens it up and makes it a little bit nicer so that not everyone has to buy everything to have access to everything, if that makes sense. Any questions on a quick build?
Nope.
Yeah. This is kind of nice if like you're invited to a game and you just need a quick character to just jump right into a game. I use this a lot of times when I'm just I also when I'm running a game and I will pre-generate characters so I can just kind of print the information off and give it to players so they can just jump right in and not have to worry about a lot of the stuff. I do recommend, if you can get a chance, to take a look at a player's handbook. If you can borrow it from a friend, borrow it from the library. There's a little bit more details on the races and the classes, spells that you have access to. There is more information. This is just kind of a general overall intro to creating a character. And as I mentioned, I just recommend think about the kind of character you want to create and see what you might need to get there. Whether it's the class, the race, spells you might want to focus on, things like that. The other thing I want to show was, I'm going to go to my characters. We're going to create a character. We're going to randomize. We're going to start with a level 1. Wonder if I can. I haven't done a random one. I'll just call it random. See what random got us. We are a high elf cleric. All right. However, if you can look, your cleric is very strong. Maybe not the most agile character. And that's not even including like the armor, which, let's see. Starting equipment. Oh. Equipment. Okay, so it's giving us the option to create here. Priest back. All right. Let's see if that. Okay. So that gives us a little bit more. Gives us more information, but we can just maybe create a random character if you want to just jump right in and create maybe a backstory from them with what you have here. It just really, you don't know what you're going to get here. You can even randomly roll stats and create a character based off that. Maybe you have a rogue who's not the most dexterous, but very charming. If you want to try that as well. Also very, very low intelligence here. And that's the random character creator on D&D Beyond. Before I forget, I know I shared it last week. Sorry, I'm trying to pull up a playlist I was watching recently. If you want more information on characters, races, classes, fighting, weapons. This Handbooker Helper from the Critical Role YouTube channel has a lot of videos, some shorter than others, but it has a little bit more in depth if you want to just kind of get a general overview of some of the things that you may need to know to start a character, playing a character, things like that. Did I? Okay, I did share the link for spreadsheets or character sheets. And then if you have a smartphone, there is an app called Fight. Sorry. I have it on my phone here. It's called Fight Club 5. It's a resource app on, I want to say, I have it on iOS. I believe it's on Android. I'll type it out here.
It is.
Okay, cool. So yeah, it is one of my favorite things as either a player character or a lot of times when I'm running a game. It has a lot of reference material. The thing I like most is for player characters, it has more of a breakdown. Like you can look at spells. So you can like search for a spell if you need a little additional information on it on the fly. Because sometimes even when I'm running a game, I have to ask a player like, what does that spell do? Like describe it to me. But if I want to look it up and I'm running a character, it's a great little quick reference tool. When I'm playing with pen and paper, I'll usually, if I have spells, I will write out flashcards with like a breakdown of the spells and information like that. So I just have a quick reference guide. The D&D Beyond app is great. Resource, like I said. Trying to see if I have a spellcaster real quick. Excuse me. Halfling Bard. Just to show you spells. So I have this spell called Thunderclap. Create a burst of thunderous sound that can be heard up to 100 feet away. Each creature within range other than you must succeed on a Constitution saving throw or take D6 thunder damage. And that's when I was talking about the saving throws over here. But a nice feature is like if you need a description of what it does or casting it, it's a nice little feature if you want all that information like right at your side. So yeah, I just want to show that. From what I remember, some of the recommended classes for starting out were, I want to say, Ranger, Rogue, Wizard, and Fighter. Some of the other characters, they have a little bit more in-depth features to them that takes a little bit more getting used to. I'm not saying it's don't play them, but just be aware of like some characters you might just have to look into the classes a little bit more if you're interested in playing them for your first time. Any questions about creating characters or getting ideas for characters? Anything like that for getting started?
Nope.
Has anyone had a chance to create a character yet?
Yes.
What kind of character have you created so far?
So, Wood Elf Monk.
Wood Elf Monk. Okay. Have you thought about any kind of backstory for your character, or?
No, I haven't gotten that far yet.
That's all right. Backstories are usually not my strongest point when I'm playing a character. And like I said, like sometimes it's taking ideas from fiction is some of the best. There are so many stories and archetypes out there that like if you need ideas, there's a lot out there. I just always say like put your own flavor on it. because I was just thinking of Kung Fu, the Wandering Monk. I did human variant wizard, but used die for stat rolls. Gotcha. Did you do so the 4d6 and then took the best of the 3 then? Okay, cool. I haven't actually gotten that. So you've used the app. Yeah, I was going to say the nice thing about the app is it has a lot of the same features the website I've been showing has. The reason I also like using it is the portability of it. If you have like a charged tablet or your phone, a friend of mine ran a D&D session with his friends on a camping trip around a bonfire. They had D&D Beyond to keep track of their character sheets, and then just clicked on the app to roll their dice, so they didn't even have to bring dice with them. So it's really convenient about not using up a lot of table space if you want to. Ended up with -3 strength, +3 dex, int +2, okay, +1. Nice. That is the one thing. Like sometimes you can roll really good, or sometimes you as the random one showed us, like it's up to the dice. I like the standard array just because it just kind of gives you a little bit more balance, but that's the other thing. If you're in a group, just check with your GM, DM, and your other player characters to make sure when you're creating your stats, you're kind of all on the same page for balance, or just make sure you're all creating around the same kind of way. But yeah, that's cool. I'm glad to hear you guys have had a chance to create some characters. Has anyone come up with plans for playing in a game coming up with the winter, or any friends that might run a game for you if you're not sure about GMing?
No, I'm just waiting for the campaign that you're running.
Cool. Yeah, we're planning for that in the winter, and yeah, I'm excited. It's been I was running a game for a while over the last year. I signed up for the library one. Okay, cool. Well, I'm excited for the winter. Since you both are signed up, I don't know if we want to keep recording. We can just kind of keep chatting since you're both signed up.
Sounds good. I'll stop recording.
Okay.
1 second.
Sure.